Hi there and welcome to the guest list. I'm your host, Steve Guest. Another great episode planned for today with someone that I've come to know very well over the last 6 to 12 months. And I'd consider as much a friend now as someone that I've worked and helped and they've helped me as part of an ongoing journey and process. So a quick kind of update in terms of why this podcast is here. And it's been created on the basis that I wanted to continue to add value and content to a growing collection of my network, whether that be through Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. And I put out posts to say, who should I be speaking to? Who are the people that you would like to listen to that can add value and help inspire, empower and motivate you to progress to the levels that you want to progress to. And I'm really excited today with today's guest, and we're going to have some really good conversations about high performance and top performance, top billing salespeople and how you can get there, whether you're a standing start trainee right the way through. I'm going to just quickly run through a very brief bio, but actually it sums it up really nice. So this person that is on today's podcast has built and sold 2 recruitment businesses from scratch with a turnover at point of sale of 40 million and 24 million pounds respectively. I think from memory, it was a combined total of 39 million in value. He now works with owners of small and micro recruitment firms who want to build a better lifestyle and to be financially secure. This can be achieved by creating systems to win high value new clients, be first choice supplier and the employer of choice. And my guest believes the factory model within recruitment is safer and easier to scale than the 360 model, which is certainly a topic that I'd like to get talking about. So without further ado, Mike Ames, welcome to the guest list.
Thank you for having me, Steve. Great to be here.
Pleasure. Well, I'm chuffed to get you on board, and I'm looking forward to running through the questions that I've got planned for you. So first question, why do you feel that people have nominated you? What do you feel makes you stand out as someone that people want to listen to?
I think 2 reasons. First of all, I spent about £250 bribing people to put my name forward because I was so keen to come on the show. I think it's difficult. You know, when I think about this question, I think the first thing probably is that I do have a track record. Yeah. There are a lot of people out there that are coaches and consultants in the space, but they've never actually done it themselves. You know, even people who've been successful in big companies, that's not the same as sitting around your dining room table and saying, we can do this, let's start a business, and then building it up and going through the phases and the trials and tribulations of a business, really, not recruitment, but a business, and then selling it and going through the sale process. To do that once is unusual. To do it twice is very unusual. And I think perhaps that gives me a different space to occupy. I don't know, maybe that.
I think you're spot on. I think in my experience, I speak to a lot of recruiters. I speak to a lot of consultants that work for corporates, work for smaller SMEs, and go out there and set up on their own. And to actually find individuals that can sit there and say, I've built it from scratch, I've then sold it, not only done it once, but done it twice, is a rare conversation in itself. So I think the fact that you can sit there and say, this is what I've done and this is what I did to get there, holds you in greater, I suppose, esteem than the majority.
I hope so, but I hope that it's more than that, in the sense that I know people who've done that. Yeah. But very few of them then choose to then share what they've done. Yeah. They don't, it's not the way in which it works. So it's a very small club, I think, but there are other people in it for sure. Yeah.
And I'm thinking back where we connected, I think initially it was through LinkedIn, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I think actually, wasn't it a time where I'd been taken to hospital, wasn't it? And I was having issues with blood pressure and overworking and all the stuff that I think has probably come to the forefront. And I think you put a very nice comment on there. And from there, our kind of relationships blossomed.
I think I'd heard from you. It's a very small community that we occupy, isn't it? And I'd heard about you and people said good things. And then that cropped up. and I think I did make a comment and invited you to connect on it. And I think one of the things that I'm a big believer in is collaboration, really. Don't try and look to see with people where there's conflict or competition, although that of course exists in many cases. You can't ignore it. But instead look at people to see how you can collaborate and help, because you'll get a lot more from that. And on the face of it, you could argue we do the same thing, but of course we don't. We do different things, but it's easy for us to collaborate, as we have done, of course.
Yeah, hugely. And I think on that, recruiters by their very definition, certainly in my early days, I was always taught not to collaborate. I was told to ring fence everything, protect your clients, protect your candidates at all costs. Don't dare tell your colleagues, or at least, well, very least your colleagues and your competitors, what you're doing. And it's quite unusual. I think certainly the last 12 months has brought about more collaboration than certainly the recruitment industry's ever been used to.
Agreed. Yeah, very, very much so. We always had a network back in the day of you knew who the competition were. I think there were a lot more big names in those days because people got paid more in those days. So it attracted big beasts, and we all knew each other, and everyone went out for drinks and stuff. And you would let a little bit go, and then you get a little bit back. There was that kind of stuff. But the deal was, what do you do if you see your competitor drowning? You throw stones at them. And I think there's an element of that.
Yeah.
Now it's much more collaborative, and I think it's better now, actually, considerably better.
I agree.
You get these stuff like the Canaries, and which is a great organisation, and the Pirates and all these people where you can go and meet people. I think it's awesome, really, personally.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so the main central theme of this podcast is about high performance. It's about inspirational, motivational leaders and what separates perhaps average to high performance. In your experience working with top billing recruiters, building businesses, what do you feel separates the average to the high level performers?
I think there's quite a few answers to this, isn't there, really? But if I was going to distill it down, I'd say probably three things. The first one has to be focus. We have a saying, concentrate to penetrate, penetrate to accumulate. It's a new business thing. If you want to be successful, focus on less because you'll achieve more. And I think anyone who achieves a lot is focused. They don't try. The question isn't, can I do something? The question is, should I do something? And they're different questions. So quite often you can do something, you can chase that deal down or go for that market. It's not the question though. The question is, should you do that? Or would you be better served sticking with what you want, what you do, and nailing it? And I think focus is massively important. I think, speaking as someone who's dyslexic, and I am, so I have memory problems and a whole bunch of different things, I've had to develop coping strategies around organization. So I'm very organized. And that organization has made up for my weaknesses in other areas. And I've noticed it in other people, those who are organized. I don't necessarily mean, the pencils have to be in the right color order or anything like that. But those people who are organized and know what they're doing and update their CRM system and make notes and remember to ring people, and they've got a system that works for them and stick to it, do terribly well, I think. And I think the other one has to be hard work. Do you not think? I've known plenty of talented people. They don't just lazy, really. And I did an episode of the My Game show the other day on how being lazy is good for you. I made it clear that I don't mean work shy. I just mean looking to try and do things quicker and easier and better.
Yep.
But I think lazy, when it equates to work shy, is not a good thing. You've got to put the hours in, the grafting, to get to where you need to be, for sure.
Yeah. If I think back, for one of my main motivators from being in a buying role where I got a basic salary and I knew what I was being paid every month, to be a recruitment consultant where you earn commission and there was a relation between your effort and your pay, was a big sale for me, because I could sit there and think, if I could work harder than anybody else, potentially I can earn more money. That was my driver at the time, because I thought, well, if I can spend more time placing people, I'm going to be paid proportionately for the number of people I place. If I buy well and I manage the contracts and the frameworks as a buyer, I still only got my basic salary. No matter how many hours I put into the negotiations of the contracts. And I think that was a driver for me. I think focus is really important.
Have you heard
because
that
we
story?
can be busy and spend our time in the wrong places.
You can, yeah, doing the right thing, not doing it right. And there was this lovely story. I'll be very quick because I know we've not got massive amounts of time. You may have heard it when Bill Gates was having lunch with Warren Buffett. Bill Gates' dad was there. He'd organised the lunch. And Bill Gates' dad said, I've got the two richest men in the world sitting in front of me having lunch. That's got to be unusual. He said, why is it, do you think, you're so successful? Why are you so rich? And he got them to write down one word on a piece of paper separately and then show it at the same time. And guess what word that was?
Go
It
on.
was focus. Yeah, it was focus.
Okay.
And that's what Steve Jobs did when he came back to Apple.
Yeah.
When Next came back into Apple, he got rid of a whole bunch of their product line because he wanted to focus.
Yeah.
It is about concentrate to penetrate to accumulate. You'll
Yeah.
get a lot more done.
Yeah, I completely agree. Okay, so in terms of perhaps motivational leaders and managers and people that can get the best out of individuals, what do you feel over your experience, the traits of those key leaders have had that has enabled the growth of a business?
I've held this view for years, really, and tried to live up to it myself as best as I could. Three things. I think as a leader, as opposed to a manager, although there's a lot of overlap between management and leadership, they're very different things.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as a leader, I think you have three main jobs to do. The first one is to make your people fabulous at what they do, like truly fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
That means understanding their strengths and weaknesses as people, not washing them through training courses, but really getting to know them, mentoring, coaching, investing in them. It means equipping them with exactly the right tools and materials that they need to do their job, and setting everything up so that if they're the striker, the whole team is about them putting a goal in the back of the net.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it has to be almost an obsession almost with the leader to make everybody fabulous. I always wanted everybody to be better than me. Actually, wasn't that much of a stretch because I'm only an average recruiter, truth be told. I was never that brilliant. I was all right, but never that brilliant.
Yeah.
Everybody I hired was better than me, which suited me down to the ground. But what it meant was I was used to people being better than me. I just wanted everybody to be fabulous. I think the second thing is you've got to make sure everyone's happy. I know it sounds a bit lame, but it's so important. And to do that, you have to understand each of your people as people. You have to know what motivates them, what frightens them, what's happening in their lives, what they want to achieve. I think you also have to recognize that nobody stays with you forever. You're a custodian of those people when they work for you. So it's your job to help them during that period, but know they're going to go somewhere else and do something else perhaps, and help them to do that as well. Weirdly, the more you do that, the less likely they are to leave, strangely enough. And I think the third thing really is that you've got to give people a mission, which is a reason, a purpose to go to work, which is more than just to earn money. Because the kind of people that will stay with you and do best with you are the people that get behind a mission. Those people who just focus on the money, they'll focus on somebody else's money if an opportunity arises, or they'll go and set up on their own. If you want to get the people that will build empires for you, you want people that will stay. And to do that, you need to get them behind a mission. So I think to summarize, if you get your people and you really invest in them to make them truly fabulous, and I really mean fabulous at what they do, make them happy, and also give them that purpose where they're on a mission. Not just, I'm going to say mission, by the way, Steve, I don't mean some piece of paper on the wall in the kitchen that no one really cares about or reads. I mean something that everybody feels. They go to work every day and they're up for it, they're doing it, and you're leading the charge as that leader. And if you get those three things, what that means is there's implications that drives the way in which you are with people. It drives initiatives within the firm. It drives focus. It means you've got to have a purpose and a strategy and a plan. A whole bunch of things stem out from those three things. And I personally think when I've worked for leaders in the past who've been inspirational, those three things have been there in spades, 100%.
Mike, I'm going to clear my throat 1 second. It's hay fever. That's a bit to edit. Okay, so I completely get that. And I think it's quite rare in recruitment to get everybody on side, on the same mission, on the same journey. And in my experience, it's what I tried to do when I was building regions for Fast Track. I wanted everyone to be a collective group and be bought into where we wanted to get the office to be or the region to be, because they all had a valid and valued part of that process. And I think quite often, certainly in recruitment, it gets lost because everything becomes quite selfish. It's about the individual and their ability to be a top performing individual.
But that is why, but the companies themselves, the recruitment firms themselves have created that situation.
Yeah.
Everything's about the end of the month. It's like, oh, we want you to go and do great jobs and build relationships and everything. But of course, you know what? You're going to be paid and measured by what your GP is at the end of the month. Well, guess what? That's what's going to drive their behavior. The weird thing is, when I used to hire people a lot, I didn't hire a lot of people in Crimson, which was the second of the businesses. I did a bit in the early days, but not then other people did it. But in Software Knowledge, which was the first business, pretty much every salesperson that came in, I'd interviewed or courted in many cases. We didn't use rec to rec. We used to do refrigerator recruitment, you know, where you track people. And so that's how we used to get most of our people. And I never sold a job. I sold the mission.
Yeah.
From the get-go. From the get-go, this is what we're trying to achieve, right? This is the deal. This is where we're going. This is what we want to be known as. This is how it's going to work. This is the plan to achieve that. And I always believe the mission, like 100%. If you're a leader and you don't believe your own mission, you're dead in the water.
Yeah.
I was 100% involved in that mission, right? Sold. And so it's easy, I think, to get that passion to come out when you're talking about it. Now, I'm going to assume you're good at recruitment because I've checked you out before you come for the interview with like 10 different people and they all say, yeah, they're good at what they do. So no, we're not even talking about that. What we're talking about is do you share my values and do you want this mission? Because if not, you're not coming, quite simply. And that's the way in which you keep a business on track. And yeah, do people lie? Yes, they do. Do people change? Yes, they do. But at least you're bringing in people that you think at the time and they think at the time are going to be on mission. And I think that's really important. That's how you grow. Again, that's a really key element of a scalable business.
100%. 100%. Okay. So throughout the journey, throughout the growth of the two companies, I imagine there's been lots of ups and downs. There's been huge wins. There's been areas where things perhaps haven't worked. What would you say was perhaps the biggest failure or the one part that has had a lasting part to play in the fact that you had perhaps the biggest lesson?
Yeah. Right. So when we started, there were three of us and I was the least experienced in terms of sales. The guy that ran it was my ex-agent when I was a freelancer, then my boss when I first went into recruitment, and now he was my business partner. And he was outstanding person, really was, had a massive influence on me. And he died in a car crash. So he was killed 18 months into the business. So I was in charge then, no clue what I was doing. So I did what I always do in those circumstances. I chucked time at it. I just threw time at it. And I'm very determined and I won't let things go. And I just kept going and going and going and falling over and getting back up again. And eventually, actually, mostly through the work that he'd done before he died, we had this upsurge, this uptick in work, really. And I just believed my own publicity, really. I honestly, and I thought nothing moved in the business without me. And in small businesses, you can do that, but that's not scalable. And I reached the stage where, I've told this story before on air, I'm not going to do it again, but I reached the stage where it was a seminal moment. It was nervous breakdown, divorce, business is going to implode time that happened in a very short space of time. And it suddenly made me realize that having been one of the big assets in the business, perhaps I was now easily its biggest liability. And I needed to realize that to scale, the business didn't need to depend upon me. Mm-hmm. And that was the biggest thing I learned. And it's a really big thing because everyone knows that, everyone talks about it, but then you've got to do things which change it. That's not so easy because you're basically saying, I'm not as important as I thought I was. I've got to trust people to do things and not be involved in what they do. I've got to have people fail and watch them fail and know they're going to fail, but it's necessary. That's because it's part of their development and I need to do that. Dear God, that's hard. But I think there was someone that helped me through this process. Someone else had a big effect on me. And she got me to transition so that I now no longer saw that business as the Mike Ames show. And I think that I suppose it wasn't a failure in the sense that we carried on, but it was a personal failure, and it could have ended in disaster, basically.
Yeah. And I think, I say, you often hear it said you learn the biggest lessons in failure, or you learn more of a lesson because obviously you've got to carry on to make it work and make it be the lesson. But in those instances, it's what shapes the future. I've worked with many clients that I'm tasked with finding people that will go in and add value to their business and control certain areas or divisions or sectors, but they can't let go of the control. And the person that goes in there soon leaves because they've got no autonomy to do anything.
You're not going to succeed. Part of the development of people, when you're this boss to make people fabulous, that main of leader, you have to expect, not encourage, but allow people to fail, because that's when they learn. And that's when they suddenly realize there's no safety net. Well, there is. It's you, isn't it? I've got this management saying, which I've always used. There's nothing you can break that I can't fix, because I want that to mean, look, give it your best shot. And if it fails, I'll be there for you. No worries. But actually, you want people to realize that they will fail, which is never nice. And you're going to let them fail, because then they'll learn from it. Then they'll take extra care with what they do and really bring their game up, because they don't want to fail again. Whereas most managers want to stop failure. Well, good luck with that then, because you're just going to stop people from developing. It's madness.
Yeah. And I think, failure, I had a conversation earlier. It's almost ingrained in us, isn't it, from school, that you can't make mistakes, you can't get things wrong. You're ostracized if you make so many errors, and it's not about that. It's about failure is part of the process. It's a journey. You're going to have failures.
It is, yeah. If you think about it, we all walk around, or most of us walk around now, because we failed a lot as children. We got up and fell over when we were trying to walk, and then we got up again and fell over and banged our nose, but we carried on getting up, and then eventually we learned to walk. And that's what failure does. I think it was Winston Churchill that said, or someone said, it's not how many times you fall down, it's how many times you get up that counts.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference. And really, when it comes to business development or business growth or putting a bum on a seat, to be great, to be awesome, you've got to fail and learn from that and then press on. Do you not think?
Yeah. No, I agree completely. Okay. So we've got quite a wide range of listeners. We've got people that are just embarking on their recruitment journey, having not set foot in the office yet. And we've got people that are experienced and in positions where they're doing okay. But anybody comes into this line of work, anyone that goes into sales and business development, will always have a dream of being the top performer, the highest billing, having the ability to go and make those financial choices down the line because they've been successful. What advice would you give people that are perhaps starting that journey and they've got dreams of being the top performer, the high billing people?
Okay. I think the first piece of advice applies to everybody, no matter what you do. And that is to invest in yourself. You have to make a decision early on, I think, whether you want this thing that you're doing to be a job or a profession. Because if it's a job, then you rock up in the morning, you do your thing, and you go home. And you don't do anything unless you get paid for it. And if they want you to learn, well, they better send you on a course then. And that's not very few people who feel like that are going to do outstanding things unless they've got a natural ability that they just need to draw upon, which I don't have. So to invest in yourself continually, a day you don't learn is genuinely a wasted day, I think is crucial. And you can do that in lots of ways, of course. Back in the day, you had to go on courses. Well, hey, we have the internet, we have YouTube. People are giving courses away all over the place these days. It's very easy to learn what you need to learn. And there's tons of things that you can do. I don't think it's access to the content that's important. It's this thing inside that says, if I invest in myself, whether it's in the company's time or my time, it doesn't matter because I'm the one that gains from that. And I may stay at this company for a long time or I may not, who knows? But every time I learn something and get better at something, that's me better and better and better. And if you believe in marginal gains, as I do, you just need to get a little bit better a lot of times over to be awesome at what you do. And I think that's a really key thing from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
You learn to start with because you've got to, because you don't know anything. But then you reach a stage of competence and you think, oh, I got this. Stop learning and stop investing in yourself. Don't continue to learn every single day. So I have about 30-minute learning period every single day, usually 20 minutes in the morning when I'm having breakfast. I'll read something or watch something. I'm a big Blinkist fan. I don't know whether you come across Blinkist. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah,
So you can read a book in 20 minutes, and I consume an enormous amount of content. And some of those books I then go and buy actually the actual book because I think it's a good book to have and I want to read it properly. So constantly doing that, constantly listen to audio tapes in the car when I used to travel, obviously. I don't do that. And I want to feed myself and just take from that what I need to get better.
Yeah.
I think the second piece of advice for recruiters particularly is don't just focus on the commission at the end of the month. Even though your business, the people that employ you, probably have structured things so regardless of what they say, they want you to hit GP at the end of the month. And that's what's most important to them. Well, it's important to you, of course, but there are other things that are important as well, like developing long-term relationships. Massively important. Can't develop a relationship that's going to generate the kind of revenue that you want in a month. You've got to do things now which may pay or may not pay in 6 months or 9 months or 12 months or 18 months. If you're obsessed entirely by the end of the month, you won't do what you need to do to create those relationships, which will build your empire for you. Massively so.
Yeah. And that is a game changer. I think going into recruitment and having a long-term relationship building view is important. Yes, it's important to get placements and sort the now, because you do need an element of that.
Yeah.
But actually, it's with a long-term aspiration of becoming the go-to person.
Yeah. You do. You want to chase relationships, not vacancies. And you're right to begin with. And you and I have talked about this before. And I'm a big believer. When you start off, you've got to get some money. Hey, somebody will say, well, I'm just going to build relationships. In 18 months' time, I'll be having a great time. Yeah, well, who's going to pay the bills this month then? So you've got to go and get business. And you've got to develop the skills and experience to be able to turn business from nothing if you need it. But if that's all you do, that's all you'll ever do. And it's hard to do that. What you need is a series of high value clients. And by high value, by the way, I don't mean high volume. High value clients you can build a relationship with, and the vacancies come to you, because you're quite right. That just change everything. And that's what creates exponential growth in a business, by the way. That hunter killer thing where you go out, get a vacancy, stop then doing anything about that, then fill the vacancy, then go and get another vacancy, and then stop and fill that vacancy. That stop and start approach isn't scalable, and it certainly doesn't have any exponential growth to it. The idea is to win a client and they start giving you stuff. Then you win another client and they start giving you stuff. Then you take someone else on because you've got too much stuff, and more clients and more clients. That's how you grow a 40 million or a 60 million or a whatever it is $1 million business, because the business is coming to you now, not the other way around.
And that's where you want to sit. We've had lots of conversations, haven't we? How certainly from my perspective, I've been a perm consultant for 15 years. So perm consultants, by just the very nature of how it works, tend to be a little bit up and down, a really strong month, slightly less month, strong. And it's just the nature of where people land, start dates happen, and everything else. You're not necessarily in control of it. But ultimately, if you can get to a point where your clients are coming to you, it makes things far easier to be able to make a consistent level of return in perm placements, because you're not constantly chasing and competing and fighting for every vacancy or opportunity that crops up. And I think that's generally what's wrong within the industry, certainly from a perm perspective.
I agree entirely. But again, you've got control. You've got two things over control, really, I suppose. You've got control over the type of clients that pursue, that you go for and hunt. And you've got control over the kind of work that you do with those clients. And I think if you choose to take clients that just do one-offs, and it's like perm tends to be that way, then you've got to do a lot of legwork, win a client, get one thing from it, and then start again, really.
Mm-hmm.
I was at the other end of the spectrum. I did contract because I knew that contract, you build a relationship, and people use contractors habitually, usually. So some people use contractors for a piece of work and they don't use them again. Most people habitually use contractors. So when you win a client that use contractors, even if they're not a massive client, that is a high value client because the LTV for it, the lifetime value for it, is high, massively so.
Yeah.
So you can change what you do. So you could, if you own a business and you just do perm, then you need some kind of, doesn't have to be contract, can be interim or something to supplement that, because that's how you're going to have that continual revenue stream coming in. And the perm could almost be used as a way to open doors for you as a latchkey, perhaps. I don't know.
It's so true, isn't it? I think since we've been talking, so I'm a perm consultant. My wife was a temp consultant. She's been recruiting for 17 years. She joined SGuest 4 years ago, and I've trained her to be a perm consultant because it worked with the kids and the shuttles to school and everything else, and the balance was good. And I think since we've had our conversations, we've had our first temp go out today, our first contractor.
Well done.
And it's a milestone for us. Yes, it's only one contractor, but actually it's set us on a different path that I think if we hadn't been talking, my mindset probably wouldn't have headed that direction, because my comfort blanket is perm.
Well, I think if you just want to be a jobbing consultant, whether it's your own business or somebody else's, it's fine. Go and hunt a vacancy and then fill it. And after a while, the 2 years come round and the person you placed with before come back because they want another one, or 12 months, whatever the placement period is. It's fine. Absolutely fine. But if you want to grow a scalable business, you've got to see it in a different way, else you won't do that.
Yeah, completely. So along the journey, we've talked about you talked about the 1% incremental changes there. I love that topic, and we could probably have a podcast episode purely on that. I went through a period where all the consultants that I recruited and had working with me, I bought them The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, which is a great book. Anybody that hasn't looked at The Compound Effect or the 1% incremental changes need to read about Dave Brailsford and the cycling team. I mean, for you, how important has that been, and how have you perhaps used that to implement changes?
Massively important, as me as a person, but also as the business as well, because, well, the first thing I think you have to do is accept that you've got weaknesses and your businesses are weaknesses. A lot of people don't like to do that. So, and it's not just accepting, you've got to seek them out. And that's not easy, because we all want the things that we create to be good. We don't want to create something that's got malfunctions about it. So to actively go out to your clients and say, well, I'd like you to tell me kind of what we do well, because that's cool, because I can tell the guys and that will kind of bum them up, and also we can keep doing what you like. So that's great. But really, I'm not interested in that, really. What I'm interested in is what we do wrong. And there's a thing called VOTC, Voice of the Customer, which is what we use when we use it with our clients as well. And it's such an interesting thing, because what it does is encourages criticism, really. And you'll be amazed how difficult it is for me to convince some of our clients to go ahead and do a VOTC program, even though I can prove that it pays for itself, because it does. Although real money as well, like you can see the cash that comes from it, the deals that come from it. And even though you're going to be better as a result of it, they don't want to do that. And I think it's because they're basically saying, I've not done this as well as I could have done. Well, hey, welcome to the club. Everybody's like that. Yeah. That's the fact of life. The trick is owning up to that and saying, fair enough, I can be better. Now tell me how. And that VOTC, that voice of the customer, that marginal gains, which is what we want from VOTC programs, really. We don't want massive changes, which are expensive and time consuming. We want, that thing you do? Well, don't do that. Do this instead. Oh, awesome. Yeah, of course we can do that. And you're looking for systematic faults within your business, that it's not just one person doing something wrong. There is something wrong with the business. You need to fix it. And if you never give up with that, so you need some mechanism to identify potential improvements. VOTC is good. VOTE, voice of the employee, is another good thing that you can do. You can ask your suppliers, because they always know. They always know how you could be better, just like you know how your clients could be better. No one asks, do they? Whatever it is, and then you need a mechanism to suck that in, collect it, analyze it, and decide what you're going to implement and what you're not going to implement. Make sure it goes through, and then report back to the source to say, you know, that thing you told us, great, we did it. It's brilliant. Thank you for that. And in some cases, reward people for that as well. And if you're obsessed with it, and I don't think too many people are in this country, then I think you are unstoppable. Do you know why the Germans are so successful as a nation? Lots of reasons, I suppose. But I was on a cruise going through Europe a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago or something. And we got talking to this German. We were in Germany, got talking to this German. And as he said, he worked in England. And he said, you know the thing, I'm not going to do the accent, just in case there's any German. Do you know that thing? That? No. He said, you know that thing, I worked in England. He said, the thing that struck me, he said, in Germany, in many of the companies he'd worked at, quality is the first thing on the agenda. It's the first thing, quality, not the numbers or anything like that. Board meeting, quality. The second thing is innovation. So how good are we and how can we get better? He said in England, they never get mentioned, or they tack it onto the bottom of a meeting or something, or no one cares. He said it's a really important thing in Germany. And I think I looked at him and thought, well, without knowing it, I've always believed that quality was always important to me. And so was innovation, to change and experiment and see if what you change made it better or worse or no difference at all, and continually do that. It's inevitable that you'll bubble to the top. It's inevitable. It's unshakable. So if you want to be successful, it's there for you. It's not rocket science. It's more of a change of mentality more than anything else, really. And then the discipline to implement things that you learn more than anything else, I think.
It's so true. And yet I think a lot of the time, maybe it's a British thing, I don't know, and we sit there in denial and we don't like to be criticised necessarily, or we don't want to find out our failings, so therefore we don't ask and we don't venture. But I remember being a recruiter in the early days, and I set my task out to find what all the pain points were in the industry, or pain points with clients. What's going wrong? What aren't you getting? Why is the service not delivering where you need it to be? And I set about fixing that. So I became the go-to recruiter because I'm the one that returns the calls. I'm the one that sends the CVs and is reliable and consistent. And that effectively separated me from the competition. But I think as you go through the years, you forget that's perhaps what your initial thought process was. It was the pain points. It was the bits where you can deliver. And you stop asking the questions because you assume, or I assume, rightly or wrongly, that the problems are still the same.
Yeah, it's true that it's habit, isn't it, really, more than anything else? Yeah, I agree with that. And I think it is this mentality of questioning everything. I'll tell you an interesting thing. Some people might know this, but I've just finished a module of Steve's course. Great course, by the way, but and I've just done a module in it. And the people who went on it will get a VOTC call from us, not from me, but I can't be in the room when they make it because I hate it. Because the person doing it is Pete, and he's going to go out of his way to get them to criticize me. The smallest thing is going to make me better, and he knows that. I hate it, but I'm still doing it. And I'll push back on some of the things when Pete says to me, "What about this?" No. And then later I'll think, "Oh, actually, they're absolutely right. I shouldn't have done that. I should have done this instead." So even something like that, we VOTC pretty much everything that we do as a sample. We can't do everything, but as a sample, because I need to know, and we need to know as a business, what we're doing well and how we can improve.
Yeah.
And if we don't do that, how are we going to know? You can't send out a quality survey to somebody because only 5 to 15% of people fill that in. And guess what? They're the people that like you. So pretty much everybody that fills a form in likes you. Isn't that brilliant? No, because the 95% that didn't fill it in don't like you for a reason, potentially. And you need to know what that is, mate, and fix it. Right. So don't do those questionnaire forms.
It's such a valuable exercise, though. The finding out and finding the criticisms, finding the bits where you can improve, add value, continue to, I suppose, improve what you do. You can't do that unless there's criticism or there's feedback along the way. Otherwise, you'll just carry on doing what you've always done.
Yeah. And I like the word criticism. I don't even care about constructive criticism. And you don't have to tell me how I can make it better or give me a criticism sandwich. You did this really well, Mike. This is rubbish. But you did this really well. No, I don't care really when it comes down to it. Because when I've got through the emotional kind of setback of being told that I'm not as good as I thought I was, I'm then faced with the possibility to improve. Tell me, criticize me, give me something that I can change and get better with. Well, I'm telling you now, I've just said that. Everyone's going, yeah, it's a great idea. Very few people will do it because it's scary and it's not nice. And there's this view as well that if we ask someone why they use us, they might say, well, I don't really know, thinking about it. You're rubbish. We're going down the road to the next bunch, you know. Yeah. So that won't happen, to be honest. Their clients are very good. Everything you need to know to be truly fabulous is in the hearts and minds of your clients. All you need to do is liberate it. So
100%. Right. Sorry. These will be edited out, by the way, unless I've coughed over your talking. Okay, so around you over the last so many years, who would you say are perhaps the 2 or 3 main influential people that have had a real impact on you as a person, or you as a director of recruitment business, or just in general kind of working terms? Who's inspired you?
Oh, that's easy. That's easy. My father was one, and I could speak the whole interview about him, and I'm not going to. He was full of flaws, and he wasn't educated. He was dyslexic like me, but he was dyslexic at a time when people didn't understand that, and that built up into frustration. But he gave me a belief in myself, and he was entrepreneurial, but didn't take risks. So he knew what to do and wanted to do, but he couldn't do it. And I realized that I needed to take risks if I was going to be successful. It's the single biggest differentiator, isn't it, with value? No matter how hard you work in terms of value, what makes people rich is how many risks they take. So, and he was the one that helped me to get round that and supported me in everything that I did. In terms of business, I think 2 people. One was Mike Sparks, my business partner who died. He was just, I'm not saying this because he's dead and we remember the dead fondly, but he was awesome. He was the best recruiter I knew, the best relationship manager that I knew. And he got faults, you know. By the way, you can see they're cleaning the windows. Can you see that? You can cut that out later, maybe. But he was just brilliant. And he mentored me and put me on the road. He believed in me. He offered me the job to go into recruitment. I hadn't thought about it. He said, I think you'd be a good recruiter. How wrong was he? But he was brilliant, and he made he was transitional in my life. And the other person was, remember earlier I mentioned when I had that kind of near nervous breakdown thing where we weren't scalable and I was the problem. I hired a consultant. Her name was Anne-Marie Hanlon. And she was brilliant because she taught me what scalability looked like. And I've been teaching people that now ever since, because the principles of scalability are pretty simple, really. And the things you need to do in order to be scalable, that it's not rocket science, really. Mm-hmm. And she made me see those basic principles. She worked with us for about 18 months, I think, 15, 18 months. And during that period, she completely transitioned me from being the Mike Ames, hey, it's me, it's all about me, to realizing it was my job to make people fabulous, to make people happy, and to give them that mission that we can all get behind, and then to organize a business to make that happen. And she did that. And that's the thing, you know, we went from, if you looked at a graph of our revenues, and this is like 20 years ago, so 30 years ago. So we went like, I don't know, naught, this is contract, right? Naught up to 3 or 4 million. Anne-Marie Hanlon came in. And then in the next 6 years, we went from 4 million to 40 million. It went like that. And she did that. She enabled that to happen. And I've always remembered what she taught me. And I've always lived to it. And now I teach it to other people, of course. But she was massively influential on me. And more so than she'd ever know, probably.
Okay. So I've got a question for you. Now, the last 12 months or so, obviously the pandemic, lots of recruiters have been hard hit. There's been lots on furlough, lots that have found themselves at the wrong end and perhaps lost their jobs. And many recruiters have decided now is the time to go and set up on their own. And I think we've had a similar conversation before, but in my experience, lots of recruiters leave businesses and think, do you know what? I'm going to go and do this for myself. And they go out there and all they know is how to recruit. So if I can place X amount of people per year, I'm going to earn this. I get all the money, I get all the fees come to me. Happy days, I'll be happy, and I'll be able to sail off into the sunset. But what they don't understand or don't necessarily think about is the longevity of the business and what they're trying to do as a business. They think as a recruiter. How would you perhaps offer some advice to people that are perhaps in that situation, where I know there is many at the moment?
Okay, I can help with that. When I work with those people, the very first thing we do on the very first session is I say to them, you are now no longer a recruiter that owns a business. If you work with me, you are a business person that does recruitment. Later, maybe you'll do something else, or maybe someone else will do the recruitment, who knows? But you are a business person first. Now, that doesn't sound very much of a difference. Recruiter that owns a business person that does recruitment. There is a world of difference between those two, because business people work in a certain way. They think in a certain way, they do certain things, their attitudes are different. And you just happen to be doing recruitment to pay the bills. Well, fair enough. If you're a one-man band, we've all done that when we started up. Three blokes around a kitchen table. Yeah, we can do this, or whatever it was, But that's the difference. You have to change your mentality. And half of the problem, I think, is that people believe, as you say, I'm a great recruiter. And who sets up a business if they're not a great recruiter? Because you're going to starve, So you can go out and get business. You can put a bum on a seat. You can make some money. But that's not enough. That is not enough. What you'll do is you'll either just stay like that forever. And I know some people do that and want to just be a one-man band earning their money, and that's great. Or you'll flex up and then lose people, and flex up and then lose people, and have some sort of disaster which sets you back and then get you back up again. You'll yo-yo up and down. You see it all the time. I read a statistic that said something like 73% of all recruitment companies have got 10 or less people in them, employees. And another one, 20,000, that's half the recruitment companies in this country are one-man bands. So clearly scale is a big deal. And the starting point is that mentality. I am now a businessman or a businesswoman, and I happen to do recruitment. I know how to do the recruitment. Don't need to worry about that, really. What I really need to worry about is how I'm going to scale this business, how I'm going to go from one person to two person, which is the most difficult hire you'll ever make. and then from 2 to 8 or 9 is relatively easy, I think. Going through that threshold of 8 to 10 is difficult, because that's the number of people that you can't manage by proximity. So management by proximity means you manage people because you're with them, see what's going on, you know what's going on. Small businesses, that's how they manage. You can't manage by proximity. You need to manage by numbers, by data. And that transition comes around 8 to 10 people, roughly. And a lot of people don't make it. They just keep thinking they'll keep doing more of the same. Have you heard the expression, you can't make a caterpillar into a butterfly by making it bigger? And it's true, you need to reform the caterpillar and then it becomes a butterfly. It's the same in businesses. You go to a certain stage, you need to reform it, then it can grow into the next stage. So if you've just started your business, first of all, don't worry too much about what's going to come. Secure your revenue streams. Go on Steve's course. Figure out how to get that business coming in. How to win your clients and put your bum on a seat. But never lose sight from day one that you are a business person that does recruitment. And the other thing allied to that, which is part of it actually, it's part of that business person mentality, is start with the end in mind. What's the exit going to be? Are you going to grow a cash cow where you generate a lot of profit but not much value, but you take the profit out and invest that privately, buy property or stocks and shares or whatever? Or are you going to try and buy a business and sell it one day? Because they're different beasts. So make your decision, go for what you need. And the more you focus on that, I'm telling you now, more likely you are to achieve it within the timeframes that you want.
100%. There's so much value and so much content in such a short space of time, Mike. So obviously you have mentoring courses, you work one-to-one with businesses, you set up long-term plans and growth plans. Where, if listeners are interested in speaking to you more about what you have to offer, where are they likely to find you?
Well, if you want, I don't see, by the way, a LinkedIn invitation as an invitation for me to try and sell to you. I don't do that. So if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, it's absolutely fine. We have the Recruitment Pioneers, which is our free site where we put all our content. You can just register for that, get access to all the content that we produce, tons of it on there. There's the Mike Ames Show, Thursdays, which you've been on, and I want you to come on again, Steve. Thursdays, 12:30 on LinkedIn Live. We talk about subjects on there, and we produce a lot of content. I mean, if you're connected to me, you'll see all of this. We do webinars, got a good webinar coming along next month on content production, all free, everything's free. So there's lots of ways that you can either engage with me and get to know me a little bit if you want to, or just take from me, and we're fine with that. It's there for you if you want it. Starting point, invite me to connect on LinkedIn.
Yeah, good stuff. And if there's one single piece of advice that you would offer listeners, what would that be? What would that look like?
I think it is. I mean, it's quite a few things actually. It's really hard to pin this one down. I think it is to build relationships. Don't just chase vacancies from the get-go. 20 minutes a day. You chase vacancies for all day and try and put a bum on a seat for most of the day, but 20 minutes. Begin to build a mechanism that creates relationships. And that's the factory model, right? So you know exactly who you want to deal with. You begin a relationship with them. I'm not a big believer in cold calls really at all. So you don't need to do that. But what you do need is to create a relationship with someone who's important, to gradually build that to the stage that they trust you and want you to be part of their world. And even if it's your first day, today, and this is the first thing you're listening to and thinking, what's he on about, right? Just take 20 minutes to understand what an ideal client looks like. Come on, what's a perfect client for you? Then go on to LinkedIn and find 20 of them and stick them in a spreadsheet. That's it. And just focus on those buggers really until they become clients, or at least some of them do. That's going to take you time. You're not going to make money out of them this month, next month, this year maybe, who knows, right? But you will make money out of them one day, and a lot of money from the get-go, now, today.
So true. Such good advice. Mike, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for spending time with me today.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. One of these days, we need to do one of these. No ending to it, and involving wine, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Now we're allowed back out, hopefully. Mike, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome.